Please be seated. I arrived in Hiroshima with the memories of others. My father was with me. He was a patriot. He volunteered and served in the Army during World War II. And after the war, he continued to serve beyond his enlistment until I was 11 years old. When I was about 17, while the war in Vietnam was taking so many young Black and brown men, some were my friends and eventually my classmates, my father told me in a quiet voice about the inhumane and horrific battle that he witnessed in Okinawa. Still in Okinawa, at the very beginning of August of 1945, he and other non-coms and officers were informed by their commander, General Douglas MacArthur, that they were to be the invasion force of Japan. After seeing the fighting on Okinawa, Daddy said that they knew that they were going to die. Daddy said that as they were getting on the amphibious craft taking them to the ships, an order of halt came, and they were surprised. It was August 6th. That order was followed by another order to stay. The next day, the troops heard that a new weapon, an atomic bomb, had been dropped on Japan. Daddy said to me, "That bomb saved my life. Because of it, you are here." But, he said, but it was wrong for the US to do it. The bomb did not kill troops. It killed the old, women, the young, the innocent, the children. The children. In that moment, I was so very proud of my dad. So Daddy was with me when I walked through the Hiroshima Peace Museum and Park. But somehow the word peace is not what one feels when one is there. Rather, it is horror, indescribable pain, and terror. In war, the worst of humanity comes to the fore. It was true in our Revolutionary War, the Civil War, World War I, and World War II. It was true for Nazi Germany, Italy, Japan, and the Allies, too. The worst in humanity has been true in what we've seen in the Middle East for decades and centuries. It was true when our troops behaved dishonorably at Abu Ghraib. But in Hiroshima, so much of the destruction has been preserved and even enshrined. The darkness of anger and violence is an all-encompassing pall that envelops you just being there, 69 years later. And for that, Hiroshima is called the city of anger. It is a city of anger because it was not the original target. It is the city of anger because over 6,000 adolescents were in Hiroshima that day to help clear out condemned buildings. It is a city of anger because it was a beautiful, clear day, as it was on 9/11 in New York, Washington, and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. And suddenly all became black and red with fire. The rockscape opened as it did at Calvary. It is a city of anger because we now know that the US always and only thought of Japan as the target, not to drop on Europe with white people, but on Japan because of our racism. William Tecumseh Sherman said, "War is cruelty, and you cannot refine it. War is hell." And Hiroshima became hell, and it is still present in its soul. But hell is also within us, for as Don DeLillo said, it is interesting how weapons reflect the soul of the maker. Being in Hiroshima, Jesus' words from the cross came to me, and I prayed, "Lord, forgive us, for we did not know what we were doing." With so many nations wanting nuclear weapons these days, I think it should be required that their leaders, their military, and their scientists go to Hiroshima. The words of Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb, were accurate and ring true. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Nagasaki was a small fishing village until 1549, when the Portuguese came, bearing the gospel. Francis Xavier was on the front line of that. He left Japan within less than 1 year, went to China with a grandiose plan to convert all the Chinese from the emperor on down. Those who followed Xavier were more Jesuit missionaries, but also soldiers who gave out firearms as an enticement to conversion, and it worked. In 1587, Christianity was banned. Christian converts were tortured and killed. Those who did not want to be killed went underground, literally and figuratively, worshiping the Madonna and the Child, carved to make them look like the mother of the Buddha and the child Buddha from India. In 1868, with the work of Hamilton Fish from New York, who was then Secretary of State in Washington, D.C., the Christians of Japan, most of them lived in and around Nagasaki, came out of their hiding places, and they ended up building the largest Christian church in all of Asia. And it was right above that church, which by then was the cathedral church of the Roman Catholic Church. The second atomic bomb exploded right above that church. Some 3,000 people inside of the church, their bodies melted together. And the image you just saw before this one is a young boy with his younger sister on his back. What they're doing is to watch their mother's body being cremated right in front of the Urakami Cathedral Church. One more. Today, Christian population is about half of 1% of the population of Japan. Anglicans comprise only 58,000. still to be a Christian in Japan is a very bad thing. Many of us were called traitors, or worse. When Frank Griswold, our former presiding bishop, went to Hiroshima, a year after he retired, he was asked to preach at the Church of the Resurrection, perfect name. And after he was introduced, he was not saying anything at all. So the rector of the church went up to him, wondering when he was going to start speaking, and Frank Griswold said, "I can't." So the rector of the church told me about 3 years later, that was the most eloquent sermon ever given in the Anglican Church of the Resurrection at that time. This is the cathedral that I just told you about, largest church in all of Asia until 1945. And the next one is the same church on a much smaller scale. Oh, the one after this. Much smaller scale that stands on the hills of Nagasaki. Gayle said I have 30 seconds more. Just before the two bombs were dropped in August 1945, the Department of War, today's Department of Defense, what's the difference? Wanted to find out how many American lives may be saved by dropping the so-called ultimate bomb in Japan. And the answer was somewhere around 60,000. All of us have been hearing millions of lives have been saved. I had to do name calling, but the first person who said that publicly was George H.W. Bush when he was running for president. 60,000 became millions and millions of lives saved. There are many lessons for us to learn, but that's one of them.
Next slide. We are the people of God in every nation around the globe.
When we see others, even enemies, being the image of God, we become makers of peace.
When we walk in the shoes of others, we incarnate peace.
When we act upon our baptismal vows to strive for justice and respect the dignity of all others, we build peace.
When we seek a way through our differences and discover what we have in common, we find ourselves in the peace of Christ. In the coming year, the world will mark the 70th anniversary of the atomic bombs dropping on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
May we vow that our hands will not be filled with the blood of innocent others.
As we remember August 1945 in the coming year, may we all say together, Lord, forgive us for what we do. We must never let this happen again.